Hi, Todd. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Last year, when Gabe Vilardi came up, in talking to him and in talking with you, the consensus was he needed a full off season where he could do the work he needed to do. Based on the conversations you've had with Gabe and the training people with your team, was he able to do what he needed to do to prepare for a season?
I believe so, and if today was any evidence, it looks like he's done the work. So last year, Gabe came up. He had to overcome the injury, and there was questions about not his skill level or his brain, hockey brain, or anything like that, but was his engine good enough to play at the NHL level? And it was, but it could have been a lot better. In this strange time of ours, the amount of time that we've had off has benefited a few. You think of Kapari, his injury, Gabe, the fact that he actually could train physically for the first time in many summers. And as a result, I think his engine's much better now than it was last year at this time. So we're hoping that he gets off to a real good start and has a real good season.
Just to follow up, Andrei Kopitar mentioned he was struck by the poise that he showed in his 10-game stint with the Kings. Is that something you would agree with? And do you see something or some things in his game that kind of excite you?
Well, I think we're all excited, not just me, but we're all excited about, one, the fact that Gabe's healthy enough to play. We know how much work he and many others in our organization put into getting him to the return point. And then the summer work that he's put in, as we talked earlier, excites everybody. What we do have to keep in mind is he's a 10-game National Hockey League player. He's still got a lot of work to do, things that he needs to learn. He's got to take a run through the league as a whole to get to know what it feels like in every building and other teams' tendencies. But with that being said, we do believe that we have a really good player, and we think he has an opportunity to reestablish his game this year and a lot of room for growth. So we're excited about it.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, next up is Jack Harris.
Todd, I know it's only one day, but did you get a sense of how much reestablishing you might have to do, how much the guys had retained system-wise from 9 months later now? Yeah,
it was, as you mentioned, it was just one day, but first impressions are valuable, I believe, and the group. And when I mention the group, I'm including the players that were in Ontario last year. They played the same system. They heard the same language. A lot of them picked things up very quickly today. So from a structure standpoint, a real good sign. Hands, timing, spatial awareness, passing, conditioning, that's all going to take time to get back to where we need to be. But I thought, considering where we've been for the last 9 months and how quick we had to put things together, I thought it was a positive day.
How much evaluation is going to happen in these first 3 intra-squad scrimmages when it comes to trying to maybe stratify the roster a little and see where different guys stack up?
Well, we're in uncharted territories. We haven't had a camp in the past where we don't get to evaluate prospects or veterans in exhibition games, and these 3 scrimmages are going to be really important. We also have to be aware that it is the first 3 scrimmages. It won't be the be all and end all, but we'll have to get down to a workable number real quick. We'll see that happen really fast here. Once we do that, that doesn't mean we've got our National Hockey League team and our American League team sorted out. As you know, there's a lot of new rules this year as far as taxi squads and whatnot, and there's a lot of plotting that we have to do as an organization to figure out who fits where.
Were you pretty happy with the fitness level? Are most guys at least stamina wise, shape wise, in a good spot after having all this time to kind of work on their bodies?
I would say yes. The limited testing that we were allowed to do, multiple players set personal highs, which was really good, and the energy and sustainability of energy on the ice today was really good. Now we'll see where we are at day 2 or 3. We expected it to be an excited group, an anxious group, an energized group today. We'll see how they are tomorrow and the day after. But, we're one of 31 teams or 32 teams soon to be that are fighting this. And hopefully we've done our homework better than the other groups, and we'll be fit and ready.
Thanks, Todd. Happy New Year.
Yep, you too.
All right, next up is Francisco Rivera.
Hi, Coach. First of all, best wishes for 2021. Wishing you guys the best personally and professionally. I want to know about how much you appreciate the effort that your team and the league in general is putting in starting a season despite the obvious circumstances, the pandemic.
Well, first of all, Francisco, thank you for the well wishes and Happy New Year. We're all looking forward to midnight tonight. I don't think things are going to change completely at 12:01, but it feels like it's going to be a fresh start. So Happy New Year to you and all our fans. As far as the ability to come back and do something that we love, that's what we've been waiting for, whether it's a coach, manager, player. And we feel like we're in a really good situation as far as the protocols that have been put in place to make sure that health comes first. I feel really good about coming to the building. I feel like I'm very well cared for here. I believe that as teammates and coach mates and organization mates, we seem to be taking care of each other, even in the weeks leading up to training camp. So to have the opportunity to go back and do something that you love, I think is great. And we're hoping that we make the best of it.
Now, just following up to that, do you guys have frequent conversations about responsibility or being responsible off the ice, social distancing, staying home as much as you can, any precautionary measures?
Well, we do. And it's continual reminders, whether it's Kopitar to Doughty or McLellan to Yanni or Blake to Emerson. Throughout the organization, we have to remind each other of the protocols that we've accepted, and we have to keep those in place and monitor each other. But as I said, our group's been outstanding. I hope that every group in the NHL's, and I'm sure they are, approaching it the way we are. And it gives us a chance to have success, healthy success.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, next up is Lisa Dillman.
Hi, Todd. Do you think with Elias, Samuel, and Carl, they have a distinct advantage having played some meaningful games in Sweden? And was that manifested at all on the ice today?
As far as the players that have played over in Sweden or in other leagues, I think it does give them advantage. Once you put 10 players on the ice and everybody starts to go full speed, the timing, the spatial awareness, the sense of what's coming, what you can or can't do, it takes a little while to get all of that back. And they should have that in the bank right now. What I will say is that they play a different game in Europe. I'm watching my son play in Germany, and it's a completely different game. Bigger ice, a little bit slower, maybe not as physical. So while they have an advantage, they also have to adjust coming to the smaller rink and faster and heavier pace.
My next question was about Jeff Carter, who I was looking, I guess his last game was February 18th or so. One day, but how did he look, and how did he look on the wing?
He looked really good considering what he's been through and the amount of time that he's been off. I just think that Cart's is such a smart player. He's a big man. He skates so well that he's always going to look good. In fact, I talked to him on the way up here how he felt, and it was thumbs up. He felt like he had a really good day. He looked good on the wing. Right now he's got Wagner on his wing and Lazat in the middle, and those two do a lot of work on that line as well. So the three of them look good together. Let's hope that continues tomorrow and from that point on.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
You too.
All right, next up is Zach Dooley.
Hey, Todd. When we talked with Drew just a bit ago, he said that the scrimmage to him felt like it had a lot of pace to it. Were you happy with the pace that both sides showed in the scrimmage portion?
I was. We approached scrimmage a little bit different maybe this year than other years. At least the first half was, I call it controlled scrimmage. So we set up certain situations so we were reminded of what we needed to do in those moments and then let them play. The second half of scrimmage was obviously face-off drop and play on from there. The pace early was really good, and as we got near the end of the game, ice conditions as well as fatigue came into play. So there was a little bit of a fall off, but none that was not expected. So I think we're in a good spot. And again, we'll see how we are tomorrow.
Going into this camp, what was the message from either yourself or Rob Blake to this group, kind of establishing what the expectations are for the season?
Well, we took them to we took them back to last year, really, to day one at training camp, and we reminded them of some of the goals we had set then and how we went about our business last year trying to accomplish those goals. A lot of them were met. We're in a different place right now than we were last year, team-wise, organization-wise, and roster-wise. And then we told them what we expected from them, at least through this first 10 days. And we need to reestablish the parameters of what's acceptable and unacceptable, what our structure is going to look like, how we want to play, some of the terms that we use so that we get quick pictures painted in our minds of what we should be doing in situations. So there's a lot that they have to absorb, but I do feel we're way further along right now than we were last year when basically there wasn't anybody on the team that had experienced it before.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, next up is Andrew Knoll.
Yeah, hi, Todd. Happy New Year. Great to see you. I wanted to first kind of touch a little bit on, you touched a bit on this earlier, but I mean, are you seeing maybe in this camp, given how scattered guys were for the majority of the 9-10 months here, more of a disparity maybe in timing and conditioning from player to player? And given how, little time you guys have before the season gets rolling, is that maybe level of preparedness going to help you make some decisions as you start to kind of stratify the roster here?
Well, I think first of all, it's a little bit early to, to completely evaluate individuals on their, call it their fitness level or their ability to adjust. I think they're going to need a little bit of time, and they'll begin to reveal their ability to keep up or fall off over the next few days. And then when it comes to making decisions, we'll try and put the best group together that we possibly can, to win games, but also the supporting group, the players that are going to be on the taxi squad, the extra bodies that we carry. It's important that they're up to par, if you will. And if we have to change players in and out, we'll certainly do that. But right now it's still, I think, a little bit early to answer your question.
Then I know last year, there were a number of guys who really stepped forward defensively over the course of the season. A couple of players today, we're talking about, it being kind of night and day from that early Canada trip and then where you guys were at the end. What are you looking to do to build on that? And, what are you looking at in terms of defensive structure and approach this year?
Well, we have to reestablish all parts of our game, but certainly defensively, when we look at the first 10 games and the last 10 games, we were a different team. And that wasn't necessarily because of effort. I think the players at that time gave us what they had at both ends, the first 10, the last 10. But they understood structure more. The risk and reward part of the game was more in our favor than it was earlier in the year. And, right now we're counting on our group to be closer to the last 10 games than the first 10 games. And we should be. We've been together long enough. We've got areas to grow our game. You're talking about defensively, and certainly we got to keep the number of goals against down. Our penalty kill has to get better, but it's all zones. It's all systems. We as much as we talk about reestablishing, we're going to need growth at some point too. And that's about where we're at as an organization, reestablish and begin to grow.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, next up, Dennis Bernstein.
Hey, Todd. So your GM says it's reasonable to expect to make the postseason this year. Your leadership group, Drew, Anjay, and Dustin said, yeah, we can do this. But more than likely, it's coming down to the offense. And there's a 38th ranked offense last year. So what needs to change? The players need to raise their level. Does the approach have to be different shot selection? What do you think you need to move the needle with respect to production offensively?
Well, a number of different areas. When you look at, and I'm not a big analytics guy, I can tell you that, but when you look at some of the underlying analytics, we did some things fairly well as a group, especially in the second half of the season to create the offense. So the finish part of it's going to be a little more important. So that comes in different forms. That comes in tactical stuff. That comes in skill stuff. We made some changes to the roster to maybe up the skill level a little bit. We talked about Gabe Vilardi earlier. If he has the year that we think he has, perhaps he can provide a little more offense. But there's others on the team that have to chip in. And we're not talking about adding 50 or 60 goals, which is unrealistic to our roster or our lineup. But if we can add 10 or 15 even and cut the goals against down a bit, all of a sudden we're in the mix and we can begin to push. So both sides of the puck, with and without it, have to improve. And if we do that, we'll give ourselves an opportunity.
But building off that, you're going to have a player join you in Athanasiou who has scored 30 goals in this league, is statistically not a very good defensive player. Like, how do you, is it you coaching this player up defensively? Is it him buying into the system? When you have a player that's mostly one way like he is, what's that conversation like?
Well, what we do is we look at his plus minus and we say he's not a very good defensive player. If you drop him into a team, and I say this with all due respect to Detroit and LA and whoever, sometimes those numbers are skewed just because of the performance of the team and the situation that he's in. I don't know where all his minuses came from. For example, Drew Doughty, in his situation, he's on the ice every time we pull the goaltender, and we gave up, I think, 11 empty net goals last year. You get a minus for that, all of a sudden it's not looking so good. So plus minus isn't a big number for me. I think it's circumstantial. For Andreas, when he gets here, we want to fit him into our structure and our system, and we think that the structure can take care of the individual a little bit, make it predictable. He has to accept the responsibility of playing on both sides of the puck. And let's face it, he can skate and he can score when he's playing well. His career can go on forever, if he gets the defensive part of it and the consistency part. And what a great opportunity for him to come here. We know that. We'll try and help him. And if we can get that out of him and maintain some offense, we'll be just fine.
Thanks, Todd.
All right. Next up, Daryl Evans.
Happy New Year, Coach. Welcome back to get going again. I'm sure you're excited to get on the ice. Going back to when you first started with this group, what are the things that you've learned most about the individuals and as a group? And were there any really surprises for you now that you've been around them for so long?
Well, I had a lot of my intuition confirmed last year. There's a lot of championship qualities in that locker room. There were last year, and there remains to be. This team, as I mentioned before, didn't win by accident. They won by design, and the drive and the ability to overcome adversity and the stick-to-itiveness, if there's such a word, was evident. I thought even last year when things weren't going well for us, we didn't depart and become individual. We stuck together as a team, and that was really good to see. Individually, a lot of my thoughts, from my San Jose Edmonton time on individual players were confirmed. You may even appreciate the Kings players even more after being here for a while around them. They were open to new ways, new ideas. They were willing to set and accept new standards. So the group, young and old, were really good that way. We feel that we've, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of reestablished culture, what's acceptable and unacceptable, and the group has been really good that way. Now we've got to translate that into growth and more wins.
And just one other thing, being a little bit of a different type of a year, any thought of how the goaltenders are going to be used or how those games are going to be divvied up with a compressed schedule, the way it's going to be?
In my opinion, I think it's getting harder and harder for a single goalie to run the table. The games are just so fast and so strenuous. compressed schedule, back-to-back games, travel, not a lot of practice time. I think you're going to need 2, maybe even 3 goaltenders at some point during the year. And we'll approach it that way. We don't feel like it's Quickie's net or Cal's net. We feel like we have a net that both of them are very capable of playing in. And, I believe that the goaltending is going to be a little like pitching at the beginning of the year, maybe that last segment to come. So we'll help them any way that we can to get their games back and feel good as we start the season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carlin Baith.
Hi, Coach. Nice to see you. Thank you for doing this. The players that were speaking with us earlier talked about kind of a deeper level of recovery, reflecting on this downtime in a really positive way, lots of time to heal. Curious to know, in what ways did you experience some positive growth in this downtime, and what were you able to focus on that you might not have had time for otherwise, kind of personally and professionally?
Well, that's a good question. So personally is easy. Kids came home from school, one brought his girlfriend with them. I don't think we've had the quality of family time like we did over the last 9 months at any point over the last few years. So I'm thankful for that. It was an outstanding opportunity for us to have dinners together and share thoughts and ideas. And we played board games and we played cards and, did all the things that you wouldn't normally do because everybody's got busy lives. So that was real good. But professionally, the one thing that we did do that you just can't do, you don't have enough time any other years, is, for lack of a better term, a hockey summit where we got to bring our American League coaches in. We got to bring the development staff and coaches in, the NHL group. So some days there's 12 of us sitting there talking about the game, but not just casually talking about it, looking at video and discussing situations, talking about what our beliefs are in these moments, sharing how we want to play. For me, that was really valuable. I was thankful as a head coach in the NHL to do it. I think back to my beginning, I wish I had that 20 years ago, because I think it would have allowed me a better start to my career than maybe I even had.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, next up is Lee Hamilton.
Hi, Todd. I'm calling from San Diego. Can you give me an assessment of where the young defenseman Bjorn Fort is right now after what you saw in Ontario, what you saw in LA, and then obviously what he's done at Djurgårdens? And is he close to being an NHLer for 56 games?
Well, the answer to the back end of the question is yes. He's close to being an NHLer for 56 games and hopefully for many years. We just don't want him for this year. We want him to have a good and healthy long career. Toby came in, had a really good camp last year, got us really excited. We put him in a situation to start the season, 3 games, and it wasn't that he was weak or didn't belong. It's just that we weren't prepared to give him what he needed to grow as a player, as far as ice time and games and that type of stuff. So we sent him to the American League. We think he's improved as a player. He's got stronger, faster, understands the North American game now. We see him playing very well at the World Junior Championships. And, when he gets back from that tournament, he will, with some others, become part of the mix and certainly an option for the big club.
And a follow-up question. When you go through a regular season schedule, Coach, obviously the last month of the season's a playoff push, and it seems to have a very different emotional feel in the room and maybe in the practice and in games. When you start this thing in 2 weeks, is this going to be a 56-game emotional playoff push? And then what's it going to be like?
You know what, Lee? I can't even pretend to give you the answer to that question. I've experienced this before coming out of a lockout, but coming out of the lockout, you were away for different reasons, and when that happened, you came back and there were fans in the building. Travel was the same. You played all the teams in the league. This is very different for us, and I think there'll be some emotion in it. I don't know if there'll be highs and lows. I don't know if it'll be even keel. I think that's a really good question. one that will be easier for me to answer maybe after the first 5 or 6 games. We're going to try and prepare for everything, but who knows what will happen.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is John Hoven.
All right, Todd, time to put aside the rainbows and the sunshine from day one of training camp. You're still a coach at heart. What did you see out there today that you didn't like, and or what type of adjustments are you already thinking about making for tomorrow?
Well, adjustments, I think when you ask that question, it's often about, hey, are you going to move some lines around? Are you going to shuffle teammates and whatnot? I think that would be a grave mistake on our behalf. These guys haven't played for 9 months. Allowing them to begin to feel comfortable with familiar line mates, I think, is really important. And over and above that, there are some restrictions about keeping groups together and whatnot. So we're in a different world when it comes to training camp. I think you'll see us scrimmage with the same lines for the first 3 days. You'll see the same groups. You won't see guys jumping from team to team unless we get into injury problems. And that's out of our control, really. We have to follow certain protocols, and we'll continue to do that. As far as not liking anything, it was hard to, I probably didn't like myself. I was standing in the middle of things. Players were moving fast. I was in the way half the time because I haven't been on the ice for a little while. But, other than that, I think we have to keep our evaluations very tame or very calm right now. We can't get too high with some players. We can't get too low on others. It's been one day, and we're just getting our feet wet.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, and last questions here from Tracy Myers.
Hi, Todd. Thank you so much for doing this. Drew Doughty just talked extensively about how much he's determined to have a great season this year. What do you expect out of him, and how can it help him playing with Ole Mata? He sounded very excited to play with him.
Yeah, we expect, I echo Drew's thoughts. We're excited about Drew coming back in and having a really good season. And, the definition of a really good season doesn't always coincide with having 100 points or 80 points as a defenseman or anything like that. He was really solid for us last year. He doesn't get enough credit for it. We were a lower place team, and the amount of minutes and the type of competition he played against, it's tough sometimes, and I don't think he gets enough credit. He gets knocked a little too much for that, but we expect him to have a really, really good season. I think having Ole as his partner, they'll complement each other quite well. It'll allow him to be maybe a little more aggressive offensively. Ole's still a young player, but he's got a ton of experience, a couple of Stanley Cup rings. And, the way he plays and his experience against top players will certainly support Drew's efforts. And between the two of them, we expect a lot from them.